Dan back? There he is. We just need Mr. Hayward. Hayward is here.
He is.
He is. Okay. Everybody's back.
Can I give you a call back? Like, we're wrapping this up here. Okay, thanks.
All set? Okay, we'll call the meeting of the Wyomissing Zoning Hearing Board back to order. Is there a motion?
Yes, I move that we grant the request of Jacob Hayward for variances from section 404, section 602.1A and section 602.1E of the Borough of Wyomissing zoning ordinance, subject to the terms and conditions to be placed on the record by our solicitor.
And Mr. Hayward, these relief that's being granted will apply both to the pavilion and for your portico extension. And those conditions are that you will comply with all testimony that's been presented today, including all exhibits that have been provided. You'll obtain and pay for all permits that are necessary for the work that's to be performed, that you comply with all laws, rules, regulations, statutes, and ordinances as it's applicable for the construction and the work that's being done. And you'll commence construction within 1 year of the date of this decision.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. The relief is granted as specified. Mr. Hayward, you can go ahead and build your portico and get the neighbors in. Are you there, Mr. Hayward?
Yeah, you're
Mr.
muted.
Hayward,
It's there, but it's muted.
Yes,
There you go.
thank you all very much for your time.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good
See
luck.
everybody.
Thank you.
See you.
Good luck.
Okay. Back again.
Yeah, I was wondering where everybody was. He was very good. I like it. It is so much more pleasant when someone is terse and succinct.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And it's covered the facts.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it makes the whole process work.
and we actually got the exhibits in order.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, golly. We had these, had all of this stuff, but I don't know where it went. Here's another long one, Robert. I might run out of breath.
I'm not, I would strongly suggest you don't read through all this one. You'll use up the entire hour going through that.
Yeah, I know.
Jared, did you print out the decree? Okay.
Michelle,
Yes.
you were talking about kitchens and deliveries, and the worst part of it is I'm putting myself through the torture of doing my own.
I meant to ask you, now that you say that, I meant to ask you last week, what happened with the stormwater part of that? We approved for advertisement last night, that new ordinance. It won't be formally adopted until the June meeting, but typically, as soon as we advertise that type of ordinance, a potential applicant can use that instead of the current regulation.
What we did is we filed the request for the permit by removing some of the impervious coverage.
Gotcha.
We, knowing that this is coming, we may be able to refile and settle on that later.
I would tell Berkey to reach out to McCarthy's office, but I mean, with similar amendments to, like, you know, the adoption of the overlay ordinances we've done recently, we've allowed applicants to come in under that pending ordinance with the understanding if adoption of the ordinance falls apart at the last minute, the applicant's subject to comply with the original ordinance. So, I mean, Berkey could submit under the pending ordinance, and you could either wait until we adopt that at the June 8th council meeting to actually start doing anything, or proceed at your own risk.
Well, no, we've gone ahead on, because the permit was granted. And we would have to, as we finish the project, remove the
Other things.
remove the coverage, and we can do that or not, based on how anything would proceed. It's all within the realm of possibility and ease.
I was hoping you didn't still have a giant open muddy hole in your yard.
No, as a matter of fact, I've got a building.
Nice.
Yeah. And while we were talking, as I said, part of it was the kitchen was in the, not part of the new part, but the countertops arrived at 4 o'clock.
That's good timing.
Yeah.
Is that the call you had to take?
Yeah, exactly. So.
Let me text Joe Nider, because I don't see him, to make sure he's joining us.
Is Naja back?
Yeah, I'm
She's
here.
Oh, okay.
Did I miss something? Are we waiting for something?
We're waiting
yeah.
for the residential zoning officer.
Ah, okay.
Mr. Hayward's here. Mr. Hayward, you must have the property that is in the very, very furthest edge of Wyomissing.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we back up to Lincoln Park.
Yeah, and I was looking at the map today and I don't think he'd get further out than you, maybe a neighbor, but not much more.
Yeah, that's correct.
Hey, Dan. Dan alive? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Gonna get my week at Rehoboth, not next week, the following.
All right, really good.
Yeah.
Same place, same location?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the house we rented, I talked the owner into putting in a kitchen.
That's fabulous. Very good.
Joe will be joining us shortly if you want to get started a while.
Okay, I suppose we can. We'll call the meeting of the Wyomissing Zoning Hearing Board to order. We're here to hear from Mr. Jacob Hayward, who's the owner of the property located at 112 Sturbridge Court, who's requesting a variance from section 404 area yard and height regulations from the Borough of Wyomissing zoning ordinance. There are a number of zoning issues relating to the property coverage, impervious coverage, side yard setback, rear setback requirements, minimum separation between the accessory structures and principal, maximum height of the accessory structure, existing building coverage, and the existing paved coverage. All of these things are to be explained by Mr. Hayward. Mr. Becker, would you like to explain how we're going to proceed?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hayward, today I see that it appears that you are unrepresented. Is that correct? You do not have legal counsel with you?
He's muted.
There he is.
No, I do not have counsel.
So as a result, the burden of proof is on you to explain to the zoning hearing board why they should grant the relief that you're requesting. The way we proceed in this type of hearing is, the hearing is being stenographically recorded by Ms. Miller. You can see her on your screen, I'm sure. And she will swear you in when you're ready to provide testimony. You'll have the opportunity to provide both oral testimony as well as documentary evidence to explain why that relief should be granted. At the conclusion, you may, if you would like to, call witnesses to help you with your testimony. At the conclusion of each of your witnesses or your testimony, the board members and other members of the public, if they exist at the hearing, will have the opportunity to ask you questions. After all questions have been asked and all evidence has been presented, the board will take a brief recess, go into an executive session, and typically they will emerge from that executive session with an oral decision. They do, however, have 45 days in which to do so and render their written decision. Do you understand how we're going to proceed today, Mr. Hayward? Okay, thank you very much. Before we go, do you have any questions about the process?
There's, well, a few questions that I had were regarding the objects or the exhibits that I had presented along with the application. Are those readily available, or do I need to provide those and put them up on screen?
Yes, I believe we probably had to see Michelle is here and Melissa Miller is also here. Between the two of them, those exhibits, I believe, will be available. You referenced what you're looking for, and I expect that Melissa will or Michelle will be able to provide those on the screen for you. Okay?
Okay.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I turn it back over to you.
All right, fine. Thank you, Mr. Becker. And Mr. Hayward, it is now up to you to present your case, and you can request that any of the display, the exhibits that you wish can be shown by Melissa. So please proceed.
And I'm going to swear you in if that's
Okay.
okay.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Miller.
Please raise your right hand. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may.
Okay, so the exhibit that you see in front of you is the plot plan. Shows my existing dwelling, and the zoning that I'm in has setback requirements that if I construct the structure as noted, I will not be able to comply with. And essentially, the main reason that I'm not able to comply is because I have no ability to put the structure in the rear section of the yard due to the steep embankment that exists. I provided some photos that I can show later. They would be in the exhibits to show the extent of the steep embankment, but as a description, it does elevate approximately 7 feet from the pool deck level over a distance of about 10 feet. So it's extremely steep. It actually can't even really be climbed or navigated. So it would not be reasonable to put a structure on that area. So as a result, the other items that exist on my property, one of the major items, which actually is what is the issue when it comes to building coverage, is the swimming pool. It was an existing swimming pool that was in when I purchased the property. It's a very large pool, and as a result, it pretty much leaves me with a situation where I have no viable areas to install any accessory structures. So those are the main justifications for allowing this. There was something was mentioned in the beginning. I just wanted to clarify. I'm not looking for an exception from the height. It just that subsection included height, area, so on and so forth. So the structure height will not exceed the height allowed by zoning. And essentially, if this structure were to be placed within the setback requirements, which for this size structure would be the normal side yard requirements, from what I understand, as well as a 5-foot rear yard requirement. And in that case, the structure would be compliant. Now, what I'm seeking is that I can locate the structure within 8 foot of the side yard. So that would really be the only yard requirement that I would not be able to comply with. And the other issues, as I mentioned, pertain to overall building coverage. And that's due to the swimming pool being considered building coverage as it relates to the overall coverage that's allowed on the lot. There would be no new impervious area created, being that the location of the structure is to be located on what was an existing concrete patio. So that patio would just be resurfaced. It's not actually going to expand. I'm actually going to overall reduce the impervious coverage on the property due to that patio extends fairly close to the property line. So that 8 foot between the structure and the adjoining property owned by the Bernardos is actually going to be turned into landscape bed so that it will become pervious structure, not impervious. So, as I mentioned, the biggest issues that are driving this really is that I have no reasonable feasible place to locate the structure otherwise. And that's pretty much the extent of that what I can describe from zoning. If we move on to the impervious, I can
Hold on, Mr. Way.
I did
just
a
one-
schedule
wait,
of
Mr. Hayward,
impervious coverage.
Mr. Hayward, just hold on before we move on.
Sure. Yes.
That was a long, pretty quick narrative, but I just want to make sure for the record we have things marked appropriately and that that I at least understand what you were describing. So first, let's mark the exhibit that is on the screen, which is what you described as, I think, the site plan or of your property as applicants 1 or A1. Now, the area that what is it exactly that you're putting on the property? What is it you're trying to build on the property?
The structure I propose to put on the property is a 14 by 24, 14 foot by 24 foot timber frame pavilion. Height, I believe I had
Hold on,
this,
Mr. Hayward. I noticed, I saw the stenographer kind of trying to understand what you said. You kind of glitched out when you were making that comment. 14 by 24 foot what?
Sure. Timber frame pavilion, open air pavilion.
Okay.
So essentially a roof structure that has no sides.
And that's the area that is marked on there as the proposed pavilion structure, correct? And being circled by the hand currently, right?
That is correct.
And I just want to make sure, again, you're putting that on existing concrete, an area which currently existing concrete. So you're not increasing the impervious coverage. Is that also correct?
That is correct.
And you're looking for a setback from your adjoining property line of 8 feet.
That's correct.
And that hatched area, which is next to the proposed pavilion, that's area where it was concrete and will be returned to grass or some other pervious type coverage?
That's correct. Yes.
You mentioned, obviously we can see the swimming pool pretty clearly. Is there, based upon this plan, do you know how, maybe you're going to get into this next, and if you are, that's fine, we'll go to that. The next chart, I think you were going to talk about the various coverages, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we move on, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to make sure we had that before we.
No problem.
So we'll call this one as A2, Exhibit A2. Please proceed.
Sure. So, as a better visual demonstration, I broke the coverage down by the overall existing and then overall proposed. It is kind of blurry on my screen, but I'll do my best. And obviously, you can all see the figures. So when you're looking at the structures, the changes to the structures, the overall structures on the property would include the change of 336 feet, which is the size of the pavilion. So the existing footprint of the structures would go up. There does show a small increase in the dwelling size, and I wanted to include that in this situation. Not that it is going to impact anything that affects the zoning of the property in terms of setback or any other requirements, but it's going to increase the non-impervious size of the dwelling area when I put a portico on the front of my house. It is a item that's allowed by right, and I intend to do that at the same time or shortly following the construction of this pavilion. And what that does is there's another item in zoning which is essentially another issue that I had granted relief or requested relief from, which is the percentage of accessory structures that can be, in other words, you can exceed 60% of the surface area of the dwelling in accessory structures. And from my understanding, a swimming pool is counted as an accessory structure. So that swimming pool in itself exceeds the allowance allowed. Again, putting me into a situation whereby I did not create the swimming pool, nor did I install it. It was my understanding it was built when the house was built new by the owner. So I don't know if it was under different impervious allowances at that time. But essentially, because the size of the swimming pool is such that it creates a situation where I could not build anything without increasing the size of the structure. So essentially, by adding a portico on the front, which will get a very small size coverage over an existing uncovered porch, it would then make the percentages a little bit better, but not a significant enough increase that it makes a difference in this case. So again, that's why that the reflection of the dwelling square foot is an increase of 30 square foot. And again, it's not a item that the portico and on the front porch does not need to be reviewed or looked at from a variance perspective. It's just going to be something that I'm going to get a zoning and building permit for to do that. But it is going to be done in the near future, and it does affect the dwelling area. So that's why I included that.
Okay.
So you can see there is a change. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm a little confused at the moment. Jeez, what the heck was that? As it relates to the portico, I understand that maybe something you can do by right, but you're asking for relief related to that because you're increasing, is that correct? You're increasing the size of the dwelling, which therefore increases the maximum building coverage on your property. Is that part of the request? I see that Joe Niter is on here, and Joe, he's the zoning officer. Joe, is that part of the request that's being made here? I just want to make sure I'm clear on this.
I did not even notice that change there of
Okay.
of square footage myself.
So,
I don't.
Hey, we're just so you understand, even though you don't need a permit, if what you're telling me that increase is going to be an increase in the building coverage requirements and exceed the building coverage requirements, then that should be included in this request for relief. You'd understand that. So is that what your intent is?
So I guess to clarify, let me just check my notes on what the building coverage, the maximum building coverage is, because I don't know that I know that off of the top of my head.
Let me ask you a question.
If anyone would be able to step in and.
Joe, can you tell me what the max, or maybe Michelle? Michelle, can you tell us
25%.
25%. Okay, and what is he at currently?
According to his calculations, he started in excess of the 25, and the pavilion and his, I guess his
portico.
Right.
So Mr. Hayward, what that means is that if you're already at the maximum of 25%, and any change that you do to the house, even though it may be something you can do by right, if you're exceeding that building coverage, you need zoning relief for that as well.
Understood. Yes.
So I assume that that's part of your request, is asking for the zoning relief to add the portico as well as the pavilion.
Yeah. Yes. If that would be possible at this point, although obviously if it's possible, I'd like them to be considered. In other words, and my understanding is that this is done sometimes, that some relief is granted, but not necessarily all that is requested. I would like to request both. but whatever is offered is, obviously helpful.
Understood. All right, continue on. I'm sorry I interrupt you, but I wanted to get that clarification. So if you can continue on.
Well, thank you. So that summarizes the coverage for the structures. Now we'll move on to the paved area coverage. I have my driveway, which is a fairly, it's an average driveway in the area, but it does, create a substantial dent in the allowed. The stoop, which again is an existing item. If this is granted, it will then no longer be a stoop and be considered building coverage because it will be a portico that's attached to the house itself. The existing front concrete walkway, which I've included, as well as the pool deck and patio. As you can see, the pool deck will shrink substantially because it will then be considered building coverage and not paved coverage. So you can see that I currently have an impervious coverage of paving of 21.94%, and it will actually decrease to 17.11%, which will create a situation that is currently non-conforming, and it will generate a conforming situation when it comes to the paved areas. Obviously, overall, when you combine the figures, if you combine the structures with the paved, in the existing state, I'm at 47.31, which again is existing non-conforming, and I will be very close to conforming. Obviously, not in the building taken by itself, but overall, when you add the two members up, I will be very close to conforming in my overall coverages that are allowed. So I think that is worth noting.
Again, just a couple of points for clarification, Mr. Hayward. I see the stoop, you have a 0 in the proposed. Are you removing the stoop or is that still there?
The stoop will then be, if granted, the stoop will then be a portico. So it will no longer be considered paved, it will be considered building.
It'll be under that. I got it. Okay, fine.
Yeah, Dan, I did go back and look even at the summary, and he did include the mention of covering the stoop and, changing it from paved coverage to building coverage. That was included.
Okay, good. And Joe, what is the maximum total impervious coverage permitted by the ordinance?
I don't actually know. Storm.
Do you know that, Michelle?
I think it's 20%, isn't it?
Well, that's paved.
Paved. Oh,
He's mixing, he's bringing in impervious, which really is both of them combined. So
Is there a maximum total coverage, Michelle?
It's 20% for paved, 25% building. The two are not interchangeable.
Got it. You're not combined. There's no combined maximum. Got it. Got it. Okay.
but I think what he's looking at is they're both considered impervious. So I guess he's saying 45% coverage would be, so he's showing you that he's closing in on that 45%.
Right. It's illustrative.
Total,
That's what he's showing.
but they are separate.
Okay. Understood. All right.
Yeah, the biggest point that I'm looking to make is that I'm not creating any new impervious, and I'm actually making the total impervious area smaller. Also by doing so, I understand they're not the sum total isn't the main objective, but I am shrinking the paved area so that will actually be in compliance with zoning, whereas currently it is not.
So you're
I
looking.
think that's understood. Yeah.
Do you have other testimony that you would like to present or other exhibits, Mr. Hayward, that you'd like to present?
There were some exhibits that I had emailed, which should just demonstrate a picture of the structure for any neighboring properties that would be concerned of what it would look like. And then additionally, there are some pictures of the embankment, which show that it isn't a reasonable area that you could construct anything upon.
Melissa, do you have those exhibits?
She doesn't, because they weren't attached to the application, but I have them saved as an email that was sent before the application was received that I can quickly send to her. At least I think I do. Yeah, hold on one second. Melissa, I just sent them to you.
Okay.
How many photographs are we talking about, Michelle?
Hold on one second. I believe it was 5. One, two, three, 5.
So we'll mark those as applicants exhibits A3, 1 through 5. When we get there. So, Mr. Hayward, while we're waiting for those exhibits to appear on the screen, let me just confirm, the zoning relief that you're requesting is you're looking for a side yard setback variance and you're looking for a building coverage variance. Is that correct? Can you unmute and just...
Sorry. Yeah, that's correct.
There's no other relief. That's the only 2 pieces of zoning relief you're requesting?
Well, the other one is the, and I believe it is under the building coverage. It is the section that states that accessory structures, total sum of accessory structures cannot exceed 60% of the overall building coverage. So yes, that is, or I'm sorry, the footprint of the main dwelling. I forget how it exactly reads, but let me see what section that is. That is 621.
621? Is that what you said?
602.1, I believe it is 602.1 .e, I believe.
All right, I see that Melissa has the photographs or the pictures or diagrams up on the screen. The first one, we'll mark this as exhibit A3, number 1. Can you describe what that is?
Sure. So that is a side view or a 3/4 view of the cedar timber frame pavilion structure. It's a rendering. So it's just to give an overall appearance of what we'd be looking at here.
You want to move on to the next one? You can kind of direct her where to go here, Mr. Hayward. If you have.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's next image. That's just a front view of the structure. Appearance wise, obviously, again, it's for these purposes, it's nothing more than to demonstrate to any neighboring properties what the overall look. That post that appears to be in the center is actually in the rear. It's just the way the view is. But that's what happens when you get a dead on view. So nonetheless, that's another picture of the structure.
All right, that one is A3-2. Go ahead. If there's another one.
Yeah, I believe the remainder are the photos of the embankment.
So we'll mark this one as A3-3. And what is that?
Yeah. So that gives you the topography of the backyard. As you can see where the existing pool area is, you can see the cover on the pool. Just to give you some reference, that fence you see in the back there is a 6-foot high fence. So that grade is, consisting of boulders that I believe were taken out when the house was constructed and or the pool being constructed to create the grade differential between the backyard and the rear neighbors, Lincoln Park, which are substantially higher. So as I mentioned, there's no way to reasonably develop that area just because of the grade differential and the topography of that area. And there, I believe, are 2 other pictures just showing across the whole entirety of the backyard, showing that exists, basically on all areas of the backyard.
All right, we'll mark this one as A3-4. That's also showing the grade, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and Melissa, why don't you move to the last one? And that's just another angle of the same area.
Another angle. It just shows that, basically shows the entirety of the property, showing that bank exists from left or right, from both sides of the entire rear of the property.
All right, we'll mark that exhibit as A3-5. Mr. Hayward, do you have any further evidence?
No, I do not.
For the board members, I guess, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if we want to ask if anybody has any questions for Mr. Hayward.
Are there any questions for the board for Mr. Hayward?
No, I don't have any questions.
I don't either.
Okay.
I see.
Mr. Hayward, the pavilion is merely there to sit under and enjoy and get out of the sun and have a picnic and that sort of thing. Is that my understanding?
That's correct. Enjoy with friends and family.
Okay,
Post-COVID.
that's good. Maybe a little yoga under there if necessary.
Perhaps if excessive relaxation is required.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Needed, are these numbers accurate?
To the best of my ability. They weren't surveyed. I did do like a spot check using satellite imagery. They were in the ballpark. So I basically accept them as being, I don't know if I want to use the word accurate, but believable.
As testified to, how's that?
Exactly.
Okay, that's good. There was a question that came up about the distance between auxiliary structures and the house. It must be, as I think I read it, 5 feet, and this does comply. Is that confirmed?
Yes, I think.
Well, there was.
Hold on one second, 2 things. Let Mr. Hayward answer that question, and what we'll do, Mr. Neidert, we'll put you on under oath.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So, Mr. Hayward, can you answer that question?
Sure. There is one point that I would need clarified, and perhaps Mr. Neidert could do that. So it is in excess of 5 foot from the dwelling itself. However, there is an architectural feature of the dwelling which will impede into that 5 foot, which is the box for the chimney, the brick chimney. It's been my experience in construction, in the experience that I've had, is that architectural features are typically not counted as it pertains to yard requirements. I don't know how that applies here. So I would like, if that is a factor, I would like that considered as well, because so basically what I'm saying is that if the chimney bump out is counted, then it will be slightly closer than 5 foot to the dwelling.
Do you know what that slightly closer is?
I believe it will end up being 4 feet if approved as proposed.
Okay. Mr. Neidert, any comment on that?
Let's swear Mr. Neidert and Ms.
I'm
Bear.
sorry, yeah.
Let's just swear them in so we have them sworn for the record.
Am I just swearing Mr. Neidert, or am I swearing someone else as well?
Michelle Bear and Joe Neidert. if you can
All
swear
right.
both of those.
I'm going to ask both of you to raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Well,
Thank you.
Okay.
Can you answer Mr. Rotherill's question? Did you hear his question?
I'm just asking if you have a comment or understanding that whether this chimney bump out is actually going to encroach in that distance between, that has to be considered between the
Separation,
structure and the house.
separation distance between the structure and the existing structure and proposed structure.
I believe, I typically would not include the chimney bump out. I just wanted to take a quick look at my memo here again, where I did address the 25 foot. Note that if the pavilion is located 25 feet off the rear line shown on the variance application, the structure would be 5 foot. So there was a discrepancy between the plot plan and what was written on the application. And all I was noting there was if in fact it was 25 foot off the rear property line, I adjusted those 5 inches. So I would accept that it does meet the 5 foot separation.
So your position is, I just want to make sure I'm clear here, Mr. Neidert, you're saying that the fact that there's the chimney bump out does not require him to request zoning relief for the separation distance between the structure and the pavilion. Is that correct?
In this case, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we do not need to consider that for purposes of zoning relief.
Okay.
Right.
That clarifies that point. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Mr. Hayward, any brief last comments?
If it wasn't, yeah, I believe the question was unanswered regarding the items of relief that are the areas where I was seeking relief from, and I just wanted to, if it's important, that I clarify that exact ordinance that pertained to the size of the overall percentage of accessory structures. Is that important that I point that out, or it was requested in my application, but I'm just asking if that's if I need to cite a specific ordinance.
It's your burden of proof, Mr. Hayward, and yes, I mean, you should be making sure that we're clear on all of the relief being requested.
Okay, all right. I have the ordinance up now. I just have to find it. It should be very brief. That's all. Sorry, just bear with me another minute. We're almost there. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so it is 6021E is where it states that the horizontal surface area at grade level of all residential accessory buildings and structures on a combined lot shall not exceed 60% of the horizontal surface area at grade level of the principal building in the same lot. So just wanted to clarify that that is part of what I'd like to see from because again in the existing state that is already exceeded due to the size of the pool, and I think that is really the crux of, aside from not having a good place to put a pavilion, the size of the existing swimming pool that was here when I purchased the property and was put in at the time the property was new, very much limits what I'm able to do here, and it's unfortunately without filling the pool in, which would earn me a divorce, and my family would abandon me, and I would have a reason to have a house. Yeah, the pool unfortunately can't be negotiated, so that is really unfortunately something that I can't really do anything about.
Mr. Hayward, do you know what if it's greater than 60%, you know what it is, what that number is?
For some reason, I don't, but I don't. If you put up, I'm sorry.
A2?
If we could put up the coverage, I would be able to calculate that very quickly.
So exhibit A2 is the coverage calculations, which should be on the screen right now.
Yep, that's correct. Yes. So again, this is where if the portico is approved, where this number would obviously change if that is or is not approved. If we're looking at in present state, the accessory structures as relative to the overall footprint of the dwelling. So currently it is so currently, my accessory structures are 75.2% of the footprint of the main dwelling, and again, due mainly to the size of the swimming pool. Now, as far as in a proposed state, assuming that the the portico is approved as well as the pavilion, we would be looking at uh, 92.12%.
Thank you.
So an increase of approximately 17%.
So in a perfect world, you're asking for relief from that part of the ordinance to exceed the ordinance by 31%.
32%, yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Just so we understand. Mr. Becker.
Okay, I do not have any further questions for this witness, and I guess, Mr. Hayward, do you have any other witnesses or other information or exhibits?
I do not have any other witnesses, nor do I have any other information.
So at this point, Mr. Hayward, I assume you rest your case. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
One last question to Mr. Hayward. Have you talked with with your neighbors, and are there any comments or criticisms or yays or nays that we should know about?
They're all looking forward to spending time under the pavilion once it's completed.
That's called bribery, Mr. Hayward.
Very close-knit neighborhood.
We have a great neighborhood. We have a lot of neighbors with like interests that we get along well with, and it's a great place to live. We love it here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Becker, let's do our housekeeping.
Absolutely. At this point, I'd like to call Michelle Bear in her capacity as the secretary for the zoning hearing board. Michelle, you've been sworn, so if you would please, what are your duties and responsibilities as a secretary for the zoning hearing board?
As the secretary to the zoning hearing board, I prepared a public notice that was posted on the subject property on April 26th of 2021 at approximately 11:15 a.m. That same notice was mailed to all adjacent property owners, including those in Shillington Borough, located within 300 feet of the subject property on April 22nd of 2021 at approximately 11:30 a.m. And the notice was advertised in the Reading Eagle on April 28th and May 5th of 2021.
And do you have those documents with you this afternoon?
I do.
I'd like to mark those as board exhibit number 1. Michelle, do you have any further information or exhibits that you'd like to present as a secretary for the zoning hearing board?
Only to go to Mr. Rothermill's question about the neighbors. I did not receive any phone calls or inquiries after the public notice was sent out.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, also, while you're here, what is the zoning ordinance that is applicable to this particular application?
The one that was printed in November of 2018.
Okay, we'll mark that, but we're not going to move that into exhibit. We'll mark that as board exhibit A, board exhibit B2. All right, thank you very much, Michelle. At this time, I'd like to go to Mr. Neidert. Mr. Neidert, you've been previously sworn in your capacity as the zoning officer for the borough. In that capacity, what are your duties and responsibilities?
Okay, I am the residential zoning officer for the borough, and my duties include the interpretation and enforcement of the zoning ordinance and providing assistance to the zoning hearing board. Issued a memo summarizing the hearing, which per testimony was missing information pertaining to the section 602.1E with the 60% coverage. So, you know, that item is missing from the memo and should have been included.
Okay. But you believe that there should be relief that it would be needed for that section as well, based upon the testimony provided by Mr. Hayward?
Definitely.
Okay.
It's an existing nonconformance.
Okay. And the other 2 variances were those that we discussed previously during his testimony as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Do you have any other relief that you believe is required for this application?
I do not.
Right. So it's those 3 variances that were discussed during Mr. Hayward's testimony.
Yes.
All right. And your memo that you referred to, do you have that with you this afternoon as well?
Excuse me, do
You
I
have
what?
the memorandum or the letter that you sent regarding this application? Do you have that? Was that also part of the documents that were
Yes.
reviewed today?
Yes, it was.
Okay, we'll mark that as board exhibit number 3. Mr. Neidert, do you have any further information that would be relevant or useful for the zoning hearing board today?
I have no further information.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I turn it back over to you.
Okay, we're going to recess and see if we can reach a quick decision on the matter. Let's say at 5:05, we'll come back. We're going to have to leave this. Everybody's going to have to log out of this. We'll have executive session and log back in at 5:05. Is that okay with everybody?
Sounds good.
All right, let's do
So,
it.
Mr. Hayward, what that means is you're coming back to this exact same link again at 5:05, okay? Okay, thank you.